The arrival of the alien woman on a quiet, dusty farming colony far from the busy human cities. Life was simple, but hard. The fields stretched for miles, and the people who lived here worked from dawn till dusk, growing crops to feed the nearby settlements. It was a place where nothing unusual ever happened until one strange morning. The sky was clear, but something in the air felt different. The workers in the fields looked up to see a dark shadow pass over the sun. A strange shape appeared in the sky, unlike anything they had ever seen before. It wasn't a plane, nor a bird. It was something far bigger and more unusual. The ship landed with a soft thud, kicking up dust and leaving a trail of smoke behind it. The workers stopped their work and stared at the ship. They had heard stories of aliens, but never thought they would see one for themselves. Slowly, the hatch of the ship opened, and from it stepped a woman. She wasn't like anyone they had seen before. She had smooth, silvery skin, and her hair shimmered like stardust. Her eyes, however, were the most unusual part, large and dark, almost like endless pools of night. She didn't speak, and she didn't move much. She just stood there, silent, looking at them. The workers, confused but curious, approached her, unsure of what to do. They had never seen anything like her, but they didn't trust her. They had heard of the dangers of alien encounters, the stories of war and chaos, and they were ready to do whatever it took to protect their land. The foreman, a tall man with a harsh face, stepped forward. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice loud and demanding. But the alien woman didn't respond. Instead, she just stood there, as if waiting for something. One of the younger workers, a man named Tom, looked at her in awe. He couldn't understand why she was so quiet, so still. Didn't she know they were all staring at her? But there was something about her, something that made him feel uneasy. She didn't seem dangerous, but she didn't seem like she was here to make friends either. The foreman, growing impatient, snapped his fingers. "Move her to the field." "She looks strong enough to help with the harvest," he ordered. The workers hesitated. They didn't know how to treat the alien woman. Could she even understand them? Could she work? The foreman, however, wasn't interested in answers. He pushed past them and grabbed the woman's arm, dragging her toward the fields. The alien woman didn't resist. She simply followed, her steps slow and deliberate. Her eyes never left the foreman's face, but she said nothing. It was as if she didn't care about what was happening around her. As they reached the fields, the workers began to whisper. They had seen many strong people in their time, but never anyone like her. She wasn't human. She didn't look human, act human, or even seem to care about what they did. She was different, and that was what made her so interesting. "Get to work!" the foreman barked. "We don't have time to waste on freaks." He shoved a shovel into her hands and turned back to the other workers, who began to follow his orders. The alien woman held the shovel in her hands, staring at it for a moment as if unsure what to do. But then, as if on instinct, she started to dig. Her movements were slow at first, but as the day went on, she picked up speed. The workers watched, amazed at how quickly she worked, how effortlessly she moved. She wasn't tired, she didn't need rest, and she didn't complain. She just worked. Despite the harsh sun beating down on her, she didn't stop. The more she worked, the more the other workers began to wonder. Who was she? What was she? And why was she here? Atoma may we master. Atoma too scared, too unsure of what was going on. They had been taught to fear the unknown, and now they were living it. As the day wore on, the foreman grew more and more impressed. The alien woman was doing more work than any of the others. She moved without rest, without hesitation. She didn't stop. It was as if she didn't need food, water, or sleep. She was an enigma. By the end of the day, the fields were nearly done, and the workers were exhausted. They had never seen anyone work like that before. The foreman walked over to the alien woman, who was still standing in the same spot, her hands covered in dirt, but her expression unreadable. "Not bad," he muttered. "Not bad at all." He turned to the others. "We'll keep her. She's strong. Maybe we can make some money off of her." But Tom, who had been watching the entire time, couldn't help but feel something was wrong. There was something different about the alien woman, something he couldn't quite understand. Why didn't she speak? Why didn't she fight back? Why did she let them treat her like this? As the workers returned to their homes that night, one question lingered in their minds. Who was she, and why was she here? But only one person tomed to wonder aloud. What if they were wrong about her? The harsh treatment the days passed, and the workers of the farming colony quickly grew accustomed to the alien woman's presence. They called her Carla, though she never introduced herself. They never asked for her name, and she never offered it. The foreman, a man named Clark, insisted she be treated like any other laborer on the farm. He gave her the hardest tasks, the ones that no one else wanted to do. It wasn't long before the others began to realize just how much she could handle. Carla lifted massive sacks of grain with one arm, carrying them effortlessly across the fields. She worked faster than any of them, and yet there was never a hint of exhaustion on her face. Her movements were almost mechanical, as if she was a machine built for this kind of work. At first, the workers were amazed. They watched as she dug deep into the earth, pulling up heavy stones from the fields without breaking a sweat. But soon, their amazement turned to mockery. They couldn't understand why someone so different, so foreign, could do the work of 10 men, yet not speak a word. They began to take advantage of her. The men would give her the most difficult tasks, pushing her to the point of exhaustion just to see how much she could endure. They treated her like a tool, something that existed only to serve their needs. She never complained. She just worked and worked and worked. One day, when the sun was high and the air was thick with heat, Carla was asked to carry an enormous load of hay from one end of the farm to the other. The load was so heavy that it would normally take 2 men to carry it. But Carla, without hesitation, hoisted the bundle onto her shoulders and began walking. Clark watched her from a distance, his arms crossed. He wasn't impressed by her strength anymore. Now, he simply saw her as an asset, someone who could be used until she wore out. The other workers laughed as Carla struggled with the load, but there was something unsettling in her eyes. She didn't flinch. She didn't look angry or upset. She looked resigned. As the afternoon wore on, the workers took breaks in the shade, drinking water and laughing among themselves. They'd already forgotten about Carla, who was still carrying the hay, her face expressionless. But as the hours passed, something unexpected happened. Carla, instead of collapsing from the weight, began to walk faster. Her movements became more fluid, more graceful. It was as if the harder they pushed her, the stronger she became. The workers noticed this, and they started to whisper among themselves. "Do you see that?" One of the men said, "She's not even tired. How does she do it?" Another worker shrugged. "She's just built different, I guess." But Tom, who had been watching Carla closely since the day she arrived, wasn't convinced. There was something off about the way she moved. He couldn't put his finger on it, but he felt like she was hiding something big. Why wasn't she showing any signs of weakness? No one could work like that. Not for so long, not in this heat. Tom's curiosity got the better of him. He had seen Carla every day, working endlessly without complaint, and he had begun to wonder what kind of creature she really was. He decided that, on his lunch break, he would try to speak with her, to learn more about the alien woman who had become both a mystery and an odd source of fascination. When Tom approached her, she was still carrying the hay, walking slowly but steadily. She didn't acknowledge him, but he knew she could hear him. Her eyes flickered toward him for a moment, but she didn't say anything. The silence between them felt heavy, as though she was waiting for him to speak. "Hey," Tom said softly, not wanting to disturb her too much. "Are you okay?" Carla didn't answer, but her pace slowed for just a moment. Her dark eyes met his, and for the first time, Tom saw something in them, a flicker of emotion. Was it fear, sadness, or was it something else? You don't have to keep doing this, Tom continued, unsure if she understood his words. We're all human here. You don't need to work like this. You're not our slave. At this, Carla's lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. She looked down at the hay on her back, as if contemplating his words. Then, as quickly as the moment had passed, she resumed walking, her steps steady, her shoulders bearing the weight of the load without strain. Tom felt a strange sense of helplessness. Here was this woman, this alien being who was capable of so much, yet she was treated like nothing more than a tool, a machine. He couldn't understand it. He didn't know what was worse, the way the foreman treated her, or the way the others ignored her humanity. As the days went by, Tom began to notice more strange things about Carla. She never slept like the rest of them. When everyone else rested in the evening, Carla would stand alone in the fields, staring at the stars above. It was as if she was waiting for something or someone to come for her. But there was never anyone. She was alone. One evening, Tom found himself walking back to the barracks after a long day of work. He had just finished his meal when he saw Carla standing near the edge of the field, her eyes gazing up at the night sky. It was almost as if she was waiting for something, a signal, a sign. He approached her carefully. "Carla." He called out softly, but she didn't turn around. "What are you waiting for?" The alien woman didn't answer, but she tilted her head slightly, as though considering his question. Then, with a final glance at the stars, she slowly turned and walked away, disappearing into the darkening night. Tom stood there for a long time, staring at the spot where she had been. There was something more to Carla than met the eye, something that no one had bothered to understand. And in that moment, he made a decision. He would find out what that something was, no matter the cost. The first glimmer of resistance, the days turned into weeks, and the workers of the farming colony began to settle into their routine. The fields needed constant attention, and Carla, though she was still treated like an object, continued her endless work. The foreman, Clark, was growing increasingly pleased with her productivity, pushing her harder and harder each day. The other workers, meanwhile, watched her in silence, unsure of what to think. Despite the harsh conditions, Carla never seemed to show any signs of weakness. She worked tirelessly from dawn till dusk, lifting heavy sacks, digging deep into the earth, and carrying impossible loads. She never complained, she never rested. It was as though she was built for this life, as though she was made to endure the hardest work and the worst conditions. But there was something strange about her. No one could deny it. It wasn't just her strength or her silence. It was the way she carried herself, the way she moved with a quiet grace that no one else had. She wasn't human. That much was clear. But there was something even more unsettling about her. She didn't seem to care. She didn't care about being mistreated, about the way she was treated like a tool. She simply accepted it. Tom, however, couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. He had been watching her for weeks now, and he couldn't stop thinking about the way she never seemed to tire, never seemed to feel the weight of the world on her shoulders. It wasn't normal. No one could work like that, not even the most hardened laborer. So, what was Carla hiding? One evening, as the sun began to set, Tom was walking back to the barracks after another grueling day of work when he saw her again, standing alone near the edge of the fields. Her face was tilted upward, staring at the sky as if waiting for something. Her expression was distant, almost vacant, but Tom saw something in her eyes, a flicker of emotion, just for a moment. He couldn't help himself. He approached her cautiously, not wanting to startle her. "Carla," he said softly, stepping closer. "What's going on? You don't have to keep doing this, you know? You don't have to work so hard. You're not just some machine." For a moment, Carla didn't respond. She simply stood there, still and silent. Tom wasn't sure if she even understood him, but he couldn't stop himself from trying. "I know you don't want to talk to me," he said, taking another step forward. "But something's not right." You're not like the others. You're different. And I think you know that." At his words, Carla's eyes flickered, and for the first time, she made eye contact with him. Her gaze was sharp, intense, almost as if she had been waiting for him to say something like that. She tilted her head slightly as if contemplating his words, and then, for the first time since she had arrived, she spoke. "I'm waiting," she said, her voice low and soft, almost a whisper. "Waiting for what?" Tom asked, surprised by the sudden response. "What are you waiting for?" Carla's eyes shifted toward the sky, her expression unreadable. "Waiting for the right time." The words sent a shiver down Tom's spine. What was she waiting for? Why hadn't she said anything before? And why now, after all this time, did she choose to speak? Before he could ask anything else, Carla turned away, slowly walking back toward the field. Her shoulders were straight, her pace steady, but there was something different about her now. She wasn't just working anymore. It was as if she was waiting for something. The next day, as Tom watched her work, he noticed something strange. Carla was carrying a massive load of hay, something that should have taken at least 2 men to carry. The other workers watched her in silence, but they didn't dare say anything. They had seen her work like this before, and they had no idea how she was capable of it. But this time, something changed. Carla's movements became more deliberate, more controlled. As she walked across the field, her steps slowed, and the weight of the load didn't seem to bother her at all. She moved as if she was in complete control of her body, her strength, and her environment. It was then that Tom saw the first glimmer of resistance. The foreman, Clark, was watching from a distance, his arms crossed as usual. He barked an order to one of the other workers, demanding that they finish the job quickly. But Carla didn't respond to the command. She simply kept walking, her eyes focused straight ahead, as if she was no longer concerned with anything around her. It was as if she had made a decision, a choice, and the choice was hers, not Clark's. Tom felt a chill run down his spine. He had been right. Carla was different. She wasn't just a worker, a tool to be used. She had her own mind, her own will. She wasn't here by accident. She was waiting for something, and now, it seemed, she was ready to act. Over the next few days, Tom kept a close eye on her. He watched as she carried out each task with precision, without breaking a sweat. But there was something else. He noticed her eyes. They were always watching, always alert, and sometimes, just for a moment, they would flicker with something that was almost knowing. The tension in the air was growing, and Tom could feel it. Something was about to happen. Carla wasn't just waiting anymore. She was preparing for something. And whatever it was going to change everything. The days on the colony felt heavier now, the air thick with tension. The workers had grown used to Carla's strange presence, but they still didn't fully understand her. She worked without rest, without complaint, and though they had all noticed the eerie calm she carried with her, none dared question the way she acted. She wasn't like the rest of them, and no one really knew what to do with that. Carla's actions, however, hadn't gone unnoticed. The foreman, Clark, had begun to notice her increasing reluctance to follow orders. At first, it was subtle. She would ignore a command here and there, or take a longer pause than usual before completing her tasks. But soon, it became more obvious. She no longer rushed to complete the work, and sometimes she simply stopped standing still in the middle of the field, staring at the horizon as if waiting for something to arrive. Clark grew frustrated. He couldn't afford to have someone underperforming, not when the harvest season was in full swing. His eyes locked on Carla one afternoon as she paused, staring at the sky again, her face unreadable. "Hey," Clark barked, striding over to her. "What's your problem? Get back to work, now." Carla turned her gaze toward him. For a moment, her eyes locked with his, and Clark felt a strange chill crawl up his spine. He had never been afraid of anyone, certainly not an alien. But there was something in her eyes that unnerved him. It was as if she wasn't just looking at him. She was seeing right through him. Carla didn't say a word. She simply turned back toward the field and began to walk again. She moved with such quiet determination that Clark was momentarily taken aback. "Don't ignore me," he shouted, now feeling a sharp edge of anger. This time, Carla didn't stop walking, but her pace slowed. She turned her head slightly, as if contemplating something. After a moment, she spoke, her voice low and calm, but with a hint of steel. "I am not here to serve you," she said, her words cutting through the still air. Clark froze. He wasn't prepared for this. He had expected her to cower or apologize, but instead, she had dared to speak back to him, to defy him openly. The other workers who had been watching the scene now held their breath, unsure of what would happen next. This was new territory for all of them. "What did you say?" Clark demanded, his face flushed with anger. Carla didn't respond immediately. She continued walking toward the edge of the field, her eyes scanning the horizon again. There was something different about her now. It was as if a switch had been flipped. No longer did she seem like the quiet, obedient alien who silently worked the fields. Now, she was something else entirely. Tom, who had been working nearby, couldn't help but watch. He had seen the way Carla had changed over the past few days, and now he could sense that something was building. It wasn't just her quiet resistance that intrigued him anymore. It was the power she seemed to be holding back, the strength that was more than just physical. There was something much deeper. After a long pause, Carla finally spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. "I am waiting for the time when you understand," she said, her eyes still fixed on the horizon. Tom's heart raced. What was she talking about? Waiting for what? And why was she telling him this now? Could she be waiting for some kind of opportunity? Had she been waiting all this time for the right moment to act? Clark's face twisted with anger. "I don't know what games you're playing, but you'll learn soon enough," he sneered. "You'll do what I say, or there will be consequences. Don't test me again." But Carla remained unfazed, her eyes now glistening with an intensity that sent a wave of unease through the workers who were watching. It was as if she were seeing something that none of them could even begin to comprehend. "Consequences," she said, her voice soft but firm. "You think you control me, but you do not." For a moment, there was complete silence. It was as if time itself had stopped. The workers could feel the tension hanging in the air, thick and heavy. No one dared to speak, not even Clark. The foreman, who had always been in charge, now seemed small in comparison to the quiet power Carla was projecting. Then, without warning, Carla turned and began to walk away again, this time with a sense of purpose. She didn't look back at the foreman or the workers. She simply walked, as if she knew exactly where she was going and what was about to happen. Tom couldn't take his eyes off her. He felt a strange pull, an urge to follow her, to learn more. He knew that whatever was happening with Carla was bigger than anything the colony had ever seen. And in that moment, something inside him shifted. He couldn't stand by anymore. He had to find out what she was waiting for. Without thinking, Tom began to follow her. As Carla walked, her steps were steady, her gaze unwavering. She didn't acknowledge Tom's presence as he trailed behind her, but he could feel the air around them change. The tension, the unease, was growing stronger by the second. Carla was no longer just an alien laborer on a farm. She was someone with a purpose, someone who had been biding her time, waiting for this very moment. They reached the edge of the field, and Carla stopped in front of a small rundown shack where the workers would sometimes rest during breaks. It was here that she paused and finally turned to face Tom. "This is where it begins," she said softly, her eyes locked onto his. "This is where everything changes." Tom was unsure what she meant, but one thing was clear. Carla wasn't just a worker. She wasn't someone to be controlled. And whatever she had planned, it was about to unfold.